So we just finished a new version of Kala, the Kala 2016. I wanted to make a quick video showing some of the new features we have. And as always, we have the ability to customize a lot of the screens and also to pull up floating windows that you can move around or keep up or just get rid of when you're done. But I wanted to focus on some of the new things. I focused on transits for this version. I wanted to create a lot of good transits tools, also some new Ashtakvarga stuff. So the cream of the new transit features are the Transits Predictive Tool. Now what this does, this lets me search for trigger transits that indicate the day an event happened. As I taught in the Predicting with Transits course, certain transits have to be happening the day an event happens. So the day you fall in love, the day you get a job, the day you go to a foreign country, the day you win a competition. Any time something happens, there's a concrete transit, actually several concrete transits coming together to trigger that event. And this is by far the most concrete technique I've ever come across in astrology. It's based on the chapter in Deepika called When a Bhava Gives Its Fruits. At the end of that chapter there's a little section on transits. And transits are a great tool, but there's so many transits happening all the time that it's always been an overwhelming thing to examine all of them. Which is why in the old books from India, rather than a lot of transit techniques, they use a lot of dashas. Because dashas are easy. You calculate the dashas once, takes you a few minutes, you have them for the whole person's life. Whereas transits, could you imagine even calculating a year of transits for a person? How much work that would be manually? So with computers we can calculate transits quickly, but even then, finding the transit that shows the day an event happens is going to be tough. So let's say we've looked at this person's chart and we've decided that, okay, I think a relationship, your relationship's going to go to the next level in the next month. And you want to find out what day that's going to happen. So we know, let's say we're going to start today, October 21st, and we can go, all right, November 21st, 2016. I want to see all the transits relevant to the Navamsha that could trigger a marriage, because the Navamsha is the chart of spouse and marriage. So I put in the date for a month range, and then I would click on screen and give it a few minutes or a little bit of time while it works out the results. Alright, so now here I get my results. And what this is showing every transit happening during that month. See how many transits that is? It's a lot of overwhelming transits. And we're covering all kinds of transits, conjunctions and trines and planetary aspects as indicated by Deepika. We've also added Rashi aspects. Now one of the unique things about the Deepika technique, he also tells you to use transits of planets in the sky. So let's say your first lord in transit conjuncts your seventh lord in transit. Well, that might be the day you meet someone, even though they're both in transit. So those are also included in this. So that's why there's a tremendous amount of transits this month. And we've looked at the dashas and we said, okay, I know your relationship's gonna take off in the next month. Now let's find the exact day. To find the exact day, we have to have the trigger a transit that can make marriage happen in the D1. All these days with this kind of gray purple are days where there's a transit in the D1. Okay, that's great, that's a good start. But also transits to give effect, a concrete effect on the day, and not just a hope or not just crushing out on somebody at the grocery store that you never even talked to, but actually something that actually concretely happens in your life. You also need a transit to happen in the D60. So we can see here all the times there's a transit based on D60 houses going on. Okay, we've got that. And again, I explain all these in detail what they are in my course, which is hours long. Here I'm just showing you the cool tool. Then I also need the D40 to line up for anything really good or really bad to happen. Then if in addition the D45 has a transit lining up, it's going to even be a bit better of an event, but it's not critical to be there in the D45. And finally, I need the transit to line up in the D9 Varga, in the Navamsha, the marriage Varga. So all these other transits up here, which have the potential to make their relationship go to the next level, it can't because there's no Navamsha. So I can discount the first 20 days. I know it can't happen on any of those days because there's no Navamsha transit. But I can see that it's happening here. I got a transit on the November 10th that includes the Navamsha, but I don't have a D60 transit right on the 10th. I do have a D60 transit on the 12th. Well, these transits have a plus or minus date range, which means the event can happen the day of the transit, the day before, or the day after. So the day after the 10th is the 11th, and the day before the 12th is the 11th. So I can actually predict November 11th. I think your relationship is going to take it to the next level. Okay? But then I can look further and say, okay, November 11th, that's one of my choices. On the 13th, I get a transits in the D1, the D60, the D45, even the D70 lining up, and on the D9. Now it's a different planet causing the transit, but that's okay. What's important is that it's within a day. So on the 13th, I've got a host of transits. 13th is perfect. I can even look further, and I can say there's even some on the 14th, but not enough. So 13th looks good, 11th looks possible. After that, I don't have anything going on until the 14th. Well, that's just a day later. So I've also got something on the 14th. So we've got so much marriage-type relationship transits at this point. And they're all covering in all the important Varga charts, that we can be sure that, yeah, your relationship is going to take it to the next level on either the 11th or around the 13th. So which one am I going to put my money on? I'm going to put my money on the 13th. Because on the 13th, we've got them all on the same day. On the 14th, we also have them all on the same day. So I would say, all right, 13th plus or minus a day. And this is the technique we use to predict an event to the exact day. And with this tool, it's so much easier than having to look at all your Vargas. So that's the first thing this tool does. This tool is also a rectification tool. The only way I rectify charts is with transits. It's the only really accurate way. With concrete events to the exact day, we can find your exact birth time. We can even rectify your D60 chart, which is the chart that changes the most rapidly. We can get all your Varga charts rectified perfectly with this technique. So now we're just finding your right logna in the birth chart, but we're finding the right minute of your logna on the birth chart. And I have a course on how to do that. With this tool, we can do it a lot quicker. We can put in different birth times and quickly see the transits for them. We can say, well, what happened if I adjust the birth time by 5 minutes? And it'll show us where the transits change. And then if the transit lines up for the event that happened, then we know that we need to adjust the chart by 5 minutes, and now we have the right birth time. So this is a transits tool to predict the day an event happens, and also a tool that lets us rectify charts much more, with a lot less time and super accurately. Okay, in line with transits, another thing we've done, we've always had this animated transit screen, which basically shows you where all the planets are at any given moment. And if you click in the middle, you'll get a Gochara report that has been in this program a long time, and it gives results of transits from the moon. And we've had that since our first version of Kala back in 2000. We also have what's called Veda positions. But what we added for the new version is we added the effects of transits from Yavana Jataka. So this is the effect of every planet transiting from every other planet and the logna. So you get to see what a planet's doing from a whole bunch of places. Okay? Like for instance, right now Saturn in transit for this person is in the 7th from the sign. 7th from the sun. Gives happiness and joy from one's wife. Okay? So you see, Saturn's actually showing we're in a good relationship time. It's in the 7th from the sun. Did you know that was even a good transit? Well, from Yavana Jataka, he tells us which are the good and bad transits, and he also gives us a little bit of details. There's no pluses on any of the other Saturn things, which means Saturn is not doing anything good from any of the other planets. So we can really quickly say, the only thing that's going to be really wonderful in your life over the next period of time when Saturn's in this sign is your relationship. But you might suffer health, you'll have problem speech, talking more, maybe. Well, as a counselor, that could mean a person who has a hard time reaching their clients. There's health problems, lots of indications of health problems, lots of relatives. So we need to be concerned about her family members. And like 4 or 5 things where there's Saturn's showing disease. So she's going to be struggling with her health, but her love life will be going on. That's the general idea for the next 2.5 years. And then every year, Jupiter is going to be in a different sign. And look at this year. Jupiter is in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Out of 8 places, it's giving good effects. Okay? So we can simply see on a day-to-day basis what's going on in your life just based on your transits, taking the details of every planet. So you can see with all these Jupiter good transits, and why with the good Saturn transit for a relationship, why it makes sense that we're expecting her relationship to take off in the next month that we just predicted the day for. So it gives results of all the transits, Mars, Sun, Venus, Mercury, and finally the Moon. So you can quickly get an idea of what's happening in your life. And sometimes these results are like so accurate you'll be surprised. I remember I had ones where the moon was in a sign that was going to cause me bleeding. And all of a sudden a tooth started bleeding that day. Just this little inconsequential thing, I just started bleeding, So that's another thing we added. Now that I've added this is something that can really be researched, and these principles can really be tested, and these effects really tested. But Bhava Gives is one of the oldest astrology books, and it's been dated by scholars to be much older than most of the other books. It's older than Deepika, it's older than Varahamihira's books, it's older than Brihat Jataka, for instance. And Varahamihira quotes from Bhava Gives all the time. It's one of his favorite books. So it was a very popular book, in North and I believe Central India, but definitely in the North. So we added that. Then we've had this Avashta's calculated screen, which is the screen I probably use the most, along with the Gemini screen, which gives us the mathematical calculations of the planet's capacity for fulfillment based on the Lagitati Avashtas. We added some options to where you can calculate these with 3 different ways. One way is simply based on the planet Shadbala. The Shadbala is used as the base. The other option is we can use the Shadbala, or we can use the Vimshopak. So I programmed it with the Vimshopak. I don't like Vimshopak for this. I don't find it working, but I programmed it for people to play with and try. But unless you want to do research, I don't recommend you use the Vimshopak. And you change the method by pushing Alt-A on your keyboard. And then another method is using the Shadbala in addition to the Jagrat Avashtas and the Baladi Avashtas. That's how I first started using this. But then as I was using it more and more, I did more and more tests and research, and I actually like it better just using the Shadbala. So you can use the old style or just pure Shadbala, which I'm finding more accurate now. So we have these 3 options. Not a big deal, but for people who use this screen, you need to know about it. One thing we did, I did an extra search option. So tools, search. We've always had this since the first version. We can search for a lot of things. I added a new thing, and that's searching for a planet low in Shadbala. You have to type it in. You can't select it from the screen. Later on, we'll add it to where you can just select it from the screen. But now you have to type it in. So we have 7 planets that have Shadbala: Sun, Moon, Mars, Mercury, Jupiter, Venus, and Saturn. Those are planets 1 through 7. So if you want to check if Saturn's low in Shadbala, put 7 LSB. LSB stands for low Shadbala. Then click on the search, and it'll give you all the charts in your database that are low in Shadbala. And I'm going to cancel that because I don't know if all my clients want you to see who they are and who they have low Shadbala. So I'm going to cancel that before it gives the results. One of the things we added too is some extra color options. So you see, like in this Avashta's table here, and in lots of other tables throughout the software, we've got blue, green, red, and black. Black is the planet itself. Green are any beneficial influences it's receiving from friends in this chart. Red are influences from enemies. Blue are influences by neutrals. Well, some people were having trouble discerning the red from the green because of, orange-green color blindness, which actually affects a lot of people. So you can now change these colors. You can just go to Options, Color Options, and we've always had lots of color options, but now you can also change the neutral, good, and bad colors. To any color you want, that's easy on your eyes, along with all the other colors can be changed. Okay, we added a lot of Ashtakvarga features. That was one of the huge things we worked on this time. So I'm going to go over to the Ashtakvarga screen, which is under Transits now. So we have a whole Transits menu, which is also new. So in our Ashtakvarga screen, we've added two things to the Ashtakvarga charts. One thing is we put the Kaksha degrees on the left-hand side, which is the 1/8 portion of the sign. Then the sign the planet's in gets an asterisk and gets bolded. So this is the sun. In this chart, we can see the sun's in Gemini, and it's in the, it's in Gemini. Okay, and so we can see right where it is, and we can see it's in the Kaksha of Mercury. Okay, so we can see all that a little easier. In the pop-up Ashtakvarga charts, say we pull up the moon, we'll get the Ashtakvarga chart, and it'll show us how many points the moon gets in each sign. We've always had that. But now it also shows what sign the moon's in. In this chart, the moon happens to be in the, the sixth sign in Gemini. Okay, so we've added that. The newest thing, the biggest thing we added to the Ashtakvarga is in the grahas from houses from themselves. What we've done here, we've taken the transits from themselves. So Mercury is in the 9th from itself, the 8th from itself, the 9th from itself, the 10th from itself, the 11th from itself, the 12th from itself, and so on different dates. Well, when you get a lot of planets in the same house from themselves, it triggers that house actually. So, for instance, this person has, in April, has Venus in the 1st from itself. At the same time, Mars is in the 1st from itself with 3 bindus. Jupiter's in the 1st from itself with 7 bindus. Venus is in the 1st from itself with 6 bindus, very auspicious. So we have 3 planets in the 1st from itself, which means she's going to have a first house experience, which means experience where she gets going down the path of her life and decides what her next big step is going to be for herself in her life. And that's exactly what happened during that time. This was an auspicious step because Jupiter is giving 7 bindus and Venus is giving 6 bindus. You'll remember we saw Saturn was causing some potential health problems, right? So we can look and see when planets are in 6 from themselves. Is there a time when a bunch creep up in 6 from themselves? Well, here we've got Mercury in 6 from itself, Sun in 6 from himself at the same time. It's not a lot. I usually like to see 3 or more. But there's 2 of them, so there'll be some concerns of health during that time. Fortunately, 5 bindus for Mercury, 5 bindus for Sun. That means she'll be able to improve her health during that bit of time. Okay, so very simple. I'll eventually show a video on how to use this technique specifically, but this is just a rough idea of how we put it in. It's a whole year of transits. You can go up and down and change the year. And it's a great technique. I used to work this technique out by hand with every chart I did. And I've used it in countless times for saying, yeah, looks like November you've got 4 planets in the 10th from themselves with good bindus, and I'm predicting that's when your career is going to take off. Really easy, brain dead technique that just requires little calculations that the computer can easily do. Then on all of our screens we've added some dashas. So we've added several Jaimini dashas. We have all 12 Jaimini dashas from the dasha chapter where he gives the event predictive dashas. The new ones to this version were the Swakendra, the Nirana, the Tara Arkamsha, and Swadashas. We added 4 new Jaimini dashas. Okay. In the animated transit screen, that's under transits, we added a 10-minute increment. And we added the 10-minute increment just to make your time changes a little smoother. We also did the same on the progression screen. We have a progression screen here. We've added a 10-minute increment to that. Most importantly, in both the progression screen and the transits, animated transit screen, we've added more options for transits to show them. We have Graha aspects, we have Rashi aspects, we have Tajika aspects, we have trines. Trines is a separate category because it's used by a lot of the classical texts of Vedic astrology, such as Deepika, but also others. And most importantly, we've added transiting to transit. So let's just turn all these other ones off real quick. So there's no transit to transits now, but transits to transits are very important. We can just move through here and see when do we get a transit to transit. Oh, it's going to do transiting to transiting or whatever you selected. So I put Rashi aspects. It'll show me all transiting to transiting Rashi aspects. So on October 29th, I got Moon Rashi aspecting Venus and Saturn, Sun and Mercury Rashi aspecting Mars in the sky, transit to transit. So we added the transit to transits, which are really important and which can trigger events and which are mentioned in the old Hindu books, but something a lot of astrologers don't pay a lot of attention to because they're sort of a pain to use. So now they're really easy to use with that addition. So those are the two. Oh yeah, then we also added the Bhava cusp degrees to the inside of the chart. So you can see when that planet's right there to the minute of arc if you want to look at that. Another thing we've added, if you pull up the Bhava Chalita chart, you can click in the center and get all the Bhava cusps. Okay, we've had that. What we added, and we get all the cusp degrees for all the Vargas. But what we've also added is all the Varga deities. So for instance, the Drakana deities are Narada, Augusta, and Durvasa. So we've added those deities to the cusp. So you can see in this person's chart, their third cusp, which is the important cusp, is ruled by Durvasa, which is the destructive rishi, who does what needs to get done and then leaves it, lets go of it, forgets about it. Well, third Varga has to do with friends and associates. Third cusp has to do with those same associates. So this person, their life with respect to their associates and friends is kind of like that. They do what they have to do with them, and when that whatever needs to get done is done, usually life takes them apart. Just like Durvasa, he's the destructive rishi that doesn't hold on to things, doesn't make things last forever. Augusti, he's the rishi who creates the long-lived things. So all these divisional deities have some meaning. We've always had them for all the planets, but now we also have them for the Bhava cusp, which is really, really helpful. For the planets, you just click on the chart and you can see the deities here. So like in the Drakana, if I pull the Drakana up, I can see the rishis here for the Drakana planets. And the Lagna, it's always been there, but now we added all the cusps into one screen. You also can print that screen if you like. In our atlas, we've added about 50-some countries. So basically, I believe we've completed the entire world this time. At this point, we're finished with the Kala Atlas, although, of course, we'll be updating as different countries change their time zone rules, which seems to happen every year or two. We'll be making updates to the atlas as necessary. But we finally have managed to add all the countries. We have well over 300 countries in the atlas, I believe. So if you've been any small countries like Macedonia, or some little countries that you've been missing in your atlas, they are there now. And if by chance something's missing, just email us and we'll get it in. In the Terra table screen, which a lot of astrologers have really come to like, this is a technique that I got from a Jaimini book where the author, the translator of the Jaimini book, a professor from India, he talks about using these taras in a whole different way that I never found anywhere else. This Jaimini book has like a 120-page intro where he talks about all kinds of cool astrological principles that are very old. So out of that book, I programmed this Terra table with which you can really easily make some simple predictions using just nakshatras. No Bhava cusps, no Rashis, just nakshatras. I do have a course on this in my nakshatras course. I teach how to do it. At some point I'll probably make a separate YouTube video for it when I get some extra time. But what we've done in this version, I've added the house cusps. So it'll say like second cusp, sixth cusp, seventh cusp, 10th. Those are the cusps. So for those of you who are using this, you now have access to the house cusps. I did those at the request of Michael Neely, or is it Reed, who is really using this table a lot, and it's one of his favorite techniques. And he was doing the house cusps by hand and asked me to do it, and so I did it, and a lot of other people can benefit from those house cusps being in there now. Another thing we've added in the options, in the calculation options, we've added a whole bunch of Ianumshas. We did this because the Swiss ephemeris, which is the most accurate calculation engine on the planet, and it also goes all the way back to 5,400 BC and all the way forward to 5,400 AD with accuracy. Any other calculation system out there, once you go back 200 years, it rapidly starts losing accuracy. Whereas the Swiss ephemeris that we use in Kala goes back to 3000 BC extremely accurately and only loses a little bit from 3000 BC to 5400 BC. So the Swiss ephemeris came out with an update, and one of the things they put in it was a bunch of extra Ianumshas. So we added all those other extra Ianumshas they had. So it's enough to drive yourself crazy if you're an Ianumsha researcher who likes to go crazy. So then you can play with that. All the Ianumshas are here. You can use Lahiri, which is the most common. You can use the True Chitra, which is a bit of an improvement on Lahiri. For Lahiri fans, I strongly recommend the Ardra Galactic Plane Ianumsha, which is a vast improvement over the Lahiri Ianumsha. Sam Jeppe and many other people, Carol Allen, used that Ianumsha as an improvement over the Lahiri. Last I spoke to them, they both did. If one of them doesn't anymore, I apologize for misquoting, but recently when I've talked to both of them, they were still using the Ardra Galactic Plane Ianumsha. But lots of other Ianumshas that you could play with. Okay, then we also, on the transit hit list, which is on the transits, we have the hit list. So with this, I could search transits to something. So I want to see when Uranus, Neptune, or Pluto are going to hit a person's moon to find out when their next big emotional breakthrough or breakdown, as the case may be, is going to be. And I want to see if one's going to happen in the next, say, 2 years or a year and a half. Type in the dates, click on screen, and let it run. All right, no, it's not going to happen within the next year. Now I can go back, and it'll save all my options, and then I can choose a wider date span or whatever. So I used not have to have the go back. You used to have a reset. Now you can go back, and of course it has a default button, so you can set the transits you want to search and set them as default, so it always searches those. But then if you make changes, you can use the go back to keep those changes for that session. So that's a handy little tool there. One of the big things we did, and we kind of did this mid-version, it's officially part of the 2016 version, but it's in some of the 2013s if you got the 2013 towards the end. But this is a whole system of astrology that some people believe originated in Egypt. I really don't know, there's no tracking where it really originated, but it's an amazingly profound system of astrology that instead of using zodiac sign symbols, basically uses playing card symbols. It's a very simple method of predictions. I use it all the time. I teach it on cardsoftruth.com. I recommend it for anyone who wants to study the occult, understand people, understand life, and make concrete predictions with about a tenth as much work as it's going to take you to do it with astrology. It's a much easier system. You know, it's just a great system. When I'm in a rush and people call me and say, or nag me on the email, and they're like, oh, I need this, I'm having this trouble, I'll open up their charts and I'll start working out, and I'm like, gosh, I don't have any time. I'll go to the Cards of Truth screen, I'll make the prediction, handle the problem a lot faster than any other method. So it's a super efficient, super accurate. I got into this system because I've had so many astrology readings, because I've done tons of trades with people. I've had astrology readings with Vedic astrologers, both in the West and India. I've had astrology readings with Western astrologers. And I've had astrology readings with the people who use this card system. And the most accurate ones I had were the one using this card system. So I put in the Kala, I developed this card system above and beyond where it's been developed anywhere else. by adding more astrological facets, by adding a lot of Vedic astrology to it basically, and rounding out the system. And it's just a great system. And for people who want to have an occult practice to make predictions and read people, it's the better system. Unless you could devote thousands of hours to astrology, study the cards of truth. Use this cards method because it's easier and it doesn't have all the crazy details. Astrology has so many details, but you can get lost in all those details and not find the thing you really need to find. With the card system, what's there is the most important things that you need to talk about, that you need to know, that you need to predict about. And so it's really one of my favorite predictive tools and reading tools. I use it all the time. I use it more and more every year just because every year I have less and less time to handle clients, and I can just do it a lot more efficiently with this. I'm not going to be able to predict you're going to have a short spouse or you're going to have a tall spouse, but I can certainly predict you're going to have a spouse and your spouse is going to come in at this time, just as accurately as Vedic astrology, but with less work attached. It's a really fun system. I like it philosophically a lot, and I highly recommend it to everybody. So that's why we programmed it into here. Okay. Another thing we added was the Ashtakvarga pop-ups. So like say I was on a screen and I'd say, oh, I want to look at the Ashtakvargas. There's a lot of techniques where you want to see all 16 Varga charts at the same time. So I'd have to go to that screen, and then I'd have to go back to the screen I was at and hopefully not forget which one it was. So what I've done now is you right click on the screen, pull up the main menu. We have a Ashtakvargas pop up where you can see all your Vargas without losing your screen. And you can put it up here, you can move it around, or you can get rid of it. But that way you get to stay with your focal screen while you look at all your Vargas if you like. We've also done a Ashtakvarga deities printout. That basically is a printout of 16 boxes showing the dignity, the baladi, the jagradati of Ashta, and the deity of the Varga. Okay, done a printout of that. And the final new thing, the other new thing we did on the Avashta's calculated screen, we have a mutual agenda table, which basically is a table that lets us see what a planet represents in that Varga chart. So let's say I wanted to predict a 4th house affair in Mars Dasha for this person. Well, Mars has the 4th house agenda because it rules the 4th cusp lord. It also rules the 4th Rashi lord. Okay? Now Jupiter rules the 4th cusp lord as well. So I can say in Mars Jupiter, you're going to have an important 4th house event. So when your Dasha Lord and Antardasha Lord have the same, what I call agenda, that's when the event happens. So this table helps you find the agendas. Most agendas are clear to find, but then when we start analyzing the planets from the Karakas, the houses from the Karakas. So for instance, Mars rules real estate. The 4th from Mars rules real estate as well. The moon rules your mother. The 4th from your moon rules your mother. So you have to be able to find all those Karaka ships too. Mercury rules financial luck. The 4th house rules financial luck. The 4th from Mercury rules financial luck. So if I'm looking for a 4th house event from Mercury, I can see from Mercury, Mercury rules the 4th. So I could predict that Mercury has the capacity to give financial luck in its dasha, depending on how good it is. If it's afflicted, of course, that could be the opposite. So this table comes up for every Varga. You can see this mutual agenda table for every Varga. So at a glance, you can see everything the planet can possibly create in its dasha or antardasha or whatever. And when the dasha and antardasha lords are showing the same thing, you get the event happening. Okay, pretty simple. The last feature we did, we've always had a lot of screens. We have 4 main screens. We have the Avashtas calculated, the Yoga Judgment, the Jaimini, Ashtakvargas, and the Cards of Truth. Those are the screens myself and my students use the most. So we made it so you could just scroll through those. You could just kind of scroll through those screens and not use your mouse. We did that on a last-minute edition because of one of my students getting, basically severe stress in his hand where he couldn't even use his mouse anymore. So he begged me a way to reduce his mouse movements. So I put that in at the last minute. In the next version, will have it so that you can customize which screens you want to scroll through. And you simply scroll through with your up-down arrow buttons on your keyboard. Okay, that's another new thing we added. And another feature we added for teachers, for anyone who teaches astrology, is the south-north screen. What this does, it has South Indian on the left, North Indian on the right. Say I want to see the Drakana. It updates both charts at the same time. Say I want to see the Drakana with the Navamsha. Well, if I put the Navamsha on the right side, it's always going to come up South Indian, or sorry, North Indian. If I pull up the Navamsha on the left side, it's always going to come up South Indian. Now these windows on the bottom are all independent, and I can pull up tables, I can pull up Shadbala, I can pull up anything I want there. But if I pull up a chart, on the right side, it's always going to pull up as South Indian, or sorry, North Indian, and it's always going to pull up as South Indian. So when you're teaching your students, they can see both North and South, and that way you can be nice to your students. I'm mean to my students. I use North sometimes, other times I use South, and I expect them to read both the same way I do. Because the truth is, South Indian charts have some advantages, and North Indian charts have some advantages. They're actually designed for different techniques. So I use both. If a technique works better on North Indian, I'm going to use North Indian. If a technique works better on South Indian, I use South Indian. And in Kala, you can quickly change what chart you're looking at simply by hitting the F2 key, what style of chart. So we added this for teachers, so I hope that helps make it easier on your students' eyes. So that's pretty much the features we've added, unless I've forgotten some. And we plan on having this version out for probably the next 2 years or so, something like that. Okay, thank you.